welcome to Synthesized podcast. In this podcast, we are going to discuss what data quality is, review existing data generation solutions, talk about SQL query analysis and how it could help with improving the quality of data. And today, I'm really glad that in this live session, we have Pavel Finkelstein from JetBrains,
Pasha.
who is actually a developer. Pasha, okay.
Pasha.
We will. Pasha, hey, glad to see you here.
Glad to see you too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, and we have Ton Badal from Synthesized, who is actually a machine learning engineer. Hey, Ton.
Sarah. Hey.
All right,
Nice
folks.
to see you.
Yeah, really glad you've joined the session. Yeah, maybe you can briefly describe what you're doing at your regular job. What kind of, I don't know, how do you work with data if you work, and maybe a little bit description about yourself. Let's start maybe with you, Pasha.
Okay. Thank you, Seva. As I said, I'm Pasha. I work as developer advocate at JetBrains, and my day-to-day job is not coding actually, but it is somehow related to data because I'm building a community. I'm participating in community. I am trying to build my publicity in community, and all this to make our tools for data engineers better. We need your feedback. We need to know what is your pain to be able to fix it. And maybe one day you will decide to use our big data tools. By the way, it's plugin for IntelliJ IDEA and several other IDEs which JetBrains creates.
Cool. Yeah, actually, we at Synthesized company, we are using a lot different JetBrains product for development, and one which is really cool. It's related to the data. This data grip. I really like this. So I don't know what I could do without it. Yeah, Anton, maybe yourself then.
I'm a machine learning engineer at Synthesized. I've been here, almost 2 years already. So that's like 2 millennia in startup time. So I've been able to work in this company that it's everything around data. So the company, we're building this platform for data. So we're making sure that the data is as good as possible. And working with the ML team as much as possible and making sure that the quality of the data that we release to our clients is the best as possible. And that's me.
Oh, nice. Good start, folks.
Now I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you really need your clients to have quality data, and why?
So there are two types of clients, I would say, two main use cases. One of them is about machine learning, using data for machine learning, and the other one is more about testing. I'm doing this differentiation because in terms of data quality, both use cases are quite different. Because, for example, in machine learning, we care a lot about things like statistical properties of the data, if the correlations are there, etc. While in testing, we care more about things like completeness or validity, and so making sure that the data is as extensive as possible and covers as many use cases and scenarios as possible. So it's very important for both cases that the quality is the best.
It was actually a joke about if your clients already have high quality data, they actually maybe don't need you.
It could be so at some point of time in the future. I don't know.
Like the ultimate goal of any manager is to bring himself out of the company, right?
Yeah, good point. Not do any work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, agree. So maybe we should start with definition of data quality. So we will define that and we'll go further, like how to improve that and what kind of tools exist on the market around that. So actually, I found like a few terms which are usually used to define how to measure the data quality, and you can use them to define how good the data. These are including completeness, validity, uniqueness, timeliness, consistency, and accuracy. Maybe we can touch this one by one and discuss like how they relevant to the uh, real cases. I mean, theory is fine, but we know that in reality it's not like similar to to the what usually you read in the books.
Okay, there was a little bit more than 5 points, and I can only
Yeah, maybe we can start
remember
with first
5.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, first
By the
one
way,
was
Pasha,
completeness,
you
right?
have agenda. Yeah,
Yeah,
you got
I
agenda.
absolutely have an agenda, but it should like look it's live and not well prepared show. Yeah, the first one is completeness, and
Yeah.
completeness. Let me try to define the completeness. Actually, I believe that complete data is the data which covers all possible cases of data which your system can potentially ingest, or maybe even can't potentially ingest, and thus will drop or handle in some other way. Tom, how do you
Yeah.
think, is it real? Is it real?
Yeah.
Is it possible?
Yeah. I think that's a good definition. So yeah, making sure that the data is, so there's an underlying phenomena that where this data is sampled from. So the data is complete if all the cases that covers are what happen in the underlying phenomena. This is how I see it. Also, just what exactly what you said, but different words. But yeah, I
Good.
think
Mhm.
I think a very interesting term about completeness is about fairness and bias also, because if the data can be really unfair, for example, if in the collection process there was some unfair process or there is some missing area, you could have some data that it's not fair or there is biased against some sensitive populations, which can be really bad and can be even illegal in some cases. Like if you are deciding whether to give credit or not to a person, you will be doing an illegal process if you don't give it based on the gender, for example. So it's very
Yeah,
important.
but do I
It's very
understand
important.
correctly that if we have biased data set, it doesn't automatically imply that we have incomplete data set? Like
Um,
we can have
mhm,
only one person of certain gender in our data
mhm.
set and many samples of persons of other genders in our data set. Still our data set is complete because we have all possible genders in our data set.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you're right, because I'm thinking more of the statistical properties of the data that they need to have some shape. But it's true that if you just have one sample of that population, then you would have a complete data set in that sense. That's a good point.
Okay, but
Yeah.
do we really always need to have a complete data?
We need to, yeah, well, depending on the purpose of the data. So I think we need to, because for example in testing, if you want to test the software and then suddenly you're missing a bit of the population, then you would test that software under this population that is missing, and then you will get in that product into production, and suddenly some people of that new group will appear, and then you will fail and you would have a problem, because having problems in production is always really bad experience for
Yeah.
everyone.
And at the
So.
same time, I guess we will touch this point with you folks a bit later when we will talk about SQL query analysis and
Mhm.
why it's important, how it could help you. But yeah, agree here.
Don't
Um,
spoil it. Why do you spoil it?
yeah, yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
time to move to the second point, right? It's validity.
yeah,
And for me, it's
yeah.
actually a hard term because I'm not sure that I understand what valid data is. Like is valid data everything our system can sees as valid data, as
Yeah,
ingestible?
I think, but it is around, correctness, and probably a good way to see it, to understand it, is how to check if the data is valid or not. So for example, you can have some validity rules, some kind of rules or constraints that will tell you whether that data is correct or not. So for
By
example,
the
if
way, it just struck me that complete data can have completely another meaning. Like if you have data set and 5 fields are required, if one of fields is not filled for even one record, it won't be complete data set. And at the same time, it won't be valid, maybe. How do you think?
Can you say that again? Sorry?
Yeah. We have a data set, and our systems says that our data set, each record in data set should have 5 fields in each record field, like age, name, and so on and so on. And now we obtain some data set, and we can see that one record does not have the name field. So it looks like it's incomplete data, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's invalid. So
Yeah,
maybe
I think that would be an invalid data set, yeah, or not correct, because a name, everyone has a name, right?
yeah,
I
we
suppose.
hope. We're not sure.
So yeah, not having like a salary, for example, it's kind of something that can happen, but a name has to happen, has to be there. So that would be a wrong entry, I would say. Yeah.
So you consider validity before completeness. Like if data is invalid, it can't be complete, and we are not interested if it's complete or not, right?
Yeah, well,
although
if it's
this
not
kind
valid,
of
other metrics maybe don't make sense at all. Like you just throw it away. How you can work with that?
But the third thing is uniqueness. It's something weird, because I'm not sure that data should be unique at all. Like we have multitude of equal things, like equal clicks from same user. They have different stamp, maybe, and maybe not. If something is going wrong and our message queue duplicates messages, but it's still valid data and we still can work with it. And usually, as data engineers, we work with such ununique data. Is uniqueness a really some definitive characteristic of data quality?
Well, uniqueness can be a problem in some situations, and it cannot be a problem in some other situations. I agree with that. Like with the clicks example, it won't be a problem at all, because you expect one people to click more than once, and that won't be a problem. But if you're doing if you're doing an interview to someone, for example, you're going to the street and collecting some data about people. If you ask the same questionnaire to the same person 5 times, then that would have more weight over the whole of the population. So that is an example where you should care a lot about uniqueness and making sure that each record is unique.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's called in English, but in Russian, from Russian, it can be translated as lie scale of lie. How big is probability of person being lying in your test, or something like that? And we ask the same question multiple times. Okay, they ask. Now I'm data engineer. I have masters in psychology, so sometimes I have some weird things in my mind. Okay,
Yeah,
what is timeliness? I'm not even sure what this word means.
yeah. This is yeah. I can I don't know, if you want, folks, I can just read the explanation, like kind of wiki or any other folks using. Timeliness defines if the data is available when it's required. So it's more maybe about like real time and near real time data. So as soon as you need it, it should be there. But yeah, this is something sort of like explanation.
So it's like punctuality, timeliness, right? iterates
maybe
at the
so.
moment.
Yeah, it could. I think it makes sense to to have a synonym like that.
Okay, now I have a question. There is such business term as late arriving data, but it is still like what we need. It may be
Mhm.
late arriving because of different reasons, but it doesn't mean in any way that its data is not not high quality enough.
Yeah,
So why,
sorry.
please?
No, I was going to say that it's not to do a lot with the data, but more about the infrastructure, maybe, right? So,
Mhm.
if
Yeah.
if the data is held in a place where it's more difficult or it takes more time to get,
Mhm.
then
Yeah, I agree.
that's
Maybe it's more infrastructural actually
Yeah,
problem.
I think that it can really happen in real life. For example, we don't need to have every buy of some person. We need to
Mhm.
have the average check for a month,
Mm.
and we need to obtain it once a day, for example. And of course, this data will be always late arriving because you need to gather this data and
Okay.
you need to count and all the things. So it's still like correct data. It's just and we hope that it may be high quality enough,
Mhm.
but it's late arriving, and there are some options how you work with it in your pipelines.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, makes sense.
next we are going to consistency. So
Yeah.
where did you find this list?
Well, actually,
Good question.
before the podcast, I went through several articles around the data quality term, and yeah, I found this.
Yeah,
Actually,
it's interesting because
consistency.
consistency is really awesome and important. I believe
Yeah,
that we can't really work with inconsistent data. Should we define the consistency term?
yeah. Let's do it this way because it's quite tricky. Like consistency would could be something like related to the how you organize the data inside your organization. I mean, all the databases, data frames, whatever. So they should be kind of consistent once you have some replicas or whatever. At the same time, consistency could be the term used inside the data. Like, so yeah, I don't know. What's your idea behind it? Like, how do you see that?
Well, consistency is something which we can do by introducing foreign keys in relational databases. Like we say that one person cannot have two different sets of names.
Hmm.
Each person has only one set of names. And if you have two sets of names in different sources, then we consider data as inconsistent. Usually, of course, in Russia, it's not the case.
Okay, nice one.
I mean,
All right,
I have a friend who has two first names, and
oh.
she's writing it differently in each system because some systems don't accept two names divided by space. Some systems don't accept two names divided by minus sign. Some
Mhm.
systems do not accept anything but first name and so on. First name. First name
Yeah.
is kind of funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a big problem internationally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in Spain
Well,
we always use two surnames, which is very inconsistent with the UK, that they only use one surname. And I'm, as a Spanish citizen, I'm always confused of which one to use. So, and you
so
can
we are
get in
sure
real
that
trouble.
yeah, we are sure that across different countries, uh, data or at least how data is exposed is not really consistent. Yeah,
But
and
at
that's a big
least
problem.
in terms of quality, consistency is most probably
Yeah.
very important, and we can check it. And it's awesome part about consistency. You can always say how to check if your data is consistent or not. Even if you have no real foreign keys, like you won't have foreign keys in my sum tables in MySQL, you still will be able to join tables manually. And if
Yeah,
it's not relational data source, you will be still able to join data with Spark or any other util tool of your choice, right?
exactly. Yeah.
And then you can anti-join data. Okay, it's now became too difficult, right?
Yeah.
Now
I
we
mean,
don't get you.
I should not use I should not use terms like anti-join.
Yes,
And
sounds like
accuracy.
an alien. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. What is accuracy? I'm not sure again.
Okay, Tom, maybe you remember that one, but yeah, I can go to the um if it means like if this data actually has an accurate representation like of the element which it describes. Um
So
so
this seems to be, so accuracy is quite related to completeness and validity then, right? Or
Completeness
it's
and
on top
validity at
of,
the same time.
yeah.
No, but it looks like it's wider a bit because your data may be formally consistent and formally complete, but it may not reflect the reality at the same time. Like I can have my name is Pavel in every data source, but if my name is Alexander or even Tanya, uh, if my real name is Tanya, then it means that all those data sources lie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think accuracy applied like something like when you check the phone numbers when you type something in your app or you checking um I know birth details like when you where you was born, when you was born, things like that. So I guess it's more like verification whether it's like looks like real these records. So that's I guess about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, but it looks like we can't ever check it, right?
Well, we
Is
can.
there
I
any
think
way
we
to
can.
check if data is accurate?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
it's,
statistically
yeah.
you can do that, right? On
Yeah, but then it's quite similar to what we talked about before with completeness. So you
yeah,
need to know what's the ground truth to compute accuracy, and it's
Yeah,
in many situations it's very difficult to get that ground truth,
yeah.
right?
For
So
example, in my example with my name, you can't actually find the ground truth.
yeah,
You can check all the sources on the earth, but there may be error in every niche and each of them.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You would have to
Some
go
fields, yeah,
to the census maybe, and then say that that's the ground truth and accept that as a real name.
Or just
yeah.
find the real telepath and ask them, what is the name of those person.
All right.
Maybe he will lie too. I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. Which that we try to define like the data quality term and with some, I guess, measuring parts. But what's the reality? Like maybe Pasha, you can bring some light here. Like, how do you usually measure the data quality? Like, I mean, what metrics do you use in real pipelines, in real life, in real projects? What are they?
At the very start of this podcast, Ton said that there are um, statistical things about our data,
Mm-hmm.
like distributions and so on. And what I know how to do is how to use frameworks like DQ by
Mm-hmm.
Amazon or Great Expectations. I can make them check the statistical things like
Mm-hmm.
distributions and so on for me before I will ingest the data. And if the you know I forgot the word. If the number of errors is too high, I can just
Mm-hmm.
do either drop incorrect records try dropping them, or I can of course drop the whole data set and say that its data set is invalid, and it strongly depends on my business case, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what I used to use. That's what I used to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Don, what do you think?
Yeah, I think those are good practices. Always making sure that you're monitoring your data and making sure that if something out of the expected happens, and make sure
Mm-hmm.
you're able there to flag it. You have some system to flag it, and yeah. Apart from removing the records, as Pasha mentioned, maybe there are things that can be done, like also imputing values. So
Mm.
if you are missing some specific field for one row, you can go to some other source and look for it, or you can find a way to get that value from another source, or from the same source maybe. And
Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
try
I
to
think
enrich data before dropping it completely.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
try to fix it exactly. Yeah.
Sounds like complex task, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It depends on whether you can get that data from some other source or not. And maybe if you just have a second database where you can get the data from, that would be nice. But otherwise, you can do other statistical things, like get the average, or get the most popular for that specific field. Or yeah, you can, yeah, it can get very complicated. If you're really interested on estimating that point, you can do some very complex stuff to achieve and to get that value.
I'm just waiting for Bayesian analysis to appear. Because some say that Bayesian analysis can solve everything for you. Like, we most probably know from your past actions what the meaning, what the value of this action will be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
By
that's
the way,
actually, yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead, Sevan. Sorry.
Yeah. By the way, yeah, Pasha mentioned this great expectations. I really want to, share a bit that maybe we can just quickly go through, review how it looks like. Mm, I don't know if they've got some like small tutorial or something like that. By the way, do you see my screen? I'm just sharing that one.
Yes.
Now I can see your screen.
Okay, let me double check. Yeah. Okay, here we are. So how does it work? Like maybe you can briefly explain, Pasha, how does it work while I'm just browsing this one.
Well, its concept is very simple. It has the abstraction of dataset, and they can
Mm-hmm.
perform some operations on these datasets. They're not exactly like Spark data frames or Pandas data frames, but they're compatible. Like you can load Pandas data. You can load Pandas dataset there, or you can load Spark dataset there, or you can
Mm-hmm.
say, "Great expectations, please read this SQL table
Mm-hmm.
for me," and it
Mm-hmm.
will load it into dataset. And then it has some like checkers. I'm not sure. Okay, checkers is a game, like validators, which you can
Mm-hmm.
run against your dataset, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
simple. Just check this for me, and then as output, the great expectations will give you a result. You have like 15 errors in your data set, or like, forgot the word again. You have some percent of deviation of this data,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah.
you can make a decision based on it. And great expectations, what I like about it, it's written in Python. It's very easy to use. It's
Mm-hmm.
cross-platform. It works with different sets of types of data, and you
Yeah.
can write your own expectations there, which is awesome too. I think at least I love it, and now I can
Okay.
see. Yeah,
From what I heard is that it contains some matchers library inside which you can use, and this matchers already use some statistical stuff like usual mathematics, right? So you can use them to assert the current data you've got in the data frame, for example, you're working with. At the
yeah.
same time, they can build you this data profile which you can use in order to analyze what's going on with the data. and at the same time you can just include it into pipeline and monitoring solution you use, right? Or I mean, can you use it as a monitoring, like to
Yeah,
alert you if there is going on something wrong with the, I don't know, stream data?
it's not what you get out of the box,
Okay.
but they actually, of course, you can build your own monitoring solution based on this data. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, I'm not sure about making it a part of pipeline. I would
Mm-hmm.
say that it can be quite uncomfortable because I'm not sure, for example, about performance of Great Expectations. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
ever check.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What one more thing which Great Expectations have is actually they can document data for you. Like
Oh.
you're feeding the Great Expectations with data, and they
Mm-hmm.
build data profile for you. Like we have such potential values in this field, we have such values in this field, we have some such range of values in this field, and so on and so on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Percent of nulls in your data, and
Yeah.
many more aspects.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, looks like they got some these assertions like expect columns to match some regular expression,
Yes,
format,
they have even
whatever.
distributional expectations.
Okay. Okay. Good. Nice. Nice. Yeah. All right.
So, and does
Cool.
it, one question, does it also handle the part to generate some data for some particular case, maybe some mock data or something similar like that, or it just given some data, it looks at it under the
No,
expectations of the user?
I don't think it can really generate any data. I
Mhm.
think it's only about expectations.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like
it's more
we
about like
expect
just
something from
assertions.
data. Yeah,
Yeah.
assertions. Yeah, I just like
Mm.
the name of the library or program,
Yeah,
depending
exactly.
how do you look on it. It's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
So they
Yeah.
expect something from data. We all expect something from data. Actually, we do not assert. We expect.
Yeah, by the way, it has a lot of integrations with even
Yeah,
Snowflake and some modern solutions which are used across different companies right now. So yeah, that's awesome.
yeah. It has integrations with all major frameworks, and I
Mm-hmm.
believe you can build integration with something else if you need it. I'm not
Okay.
sure if you really need it.
All right. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Yeah. Good one. Thank you.
Mhm.
Welcome.
All right. So yeah, in your real life, you could use one of these tools to make sure that you're building good quality data. And another thing, maybe you can mention some other tools. I don't know if you're using others, like I don't know if you use DBT for that, or some specific solutions. I don't know which
I
of those you
don't
can
even
mention.
know what is the usage pattern of GBT for checking data quality. How will you perform it?
Yeah, for example, you can build transformation, within the transformation. After you're doing the transformation, you can probably compare the data. But yeah, I mean, it's not probably GPT tool, not probably just to make assure the quality of data, but you can use it to make that happen. But it's not like, yeah, the main
Yeah,
purpose.
I'm not sure if it's the right choice for the tool.
Okay, okay.
Do you have something
Uh,
in mind, something else in your mind about what can measure data quality or anything else?
Yeah, actually, there are some monitoring solutions I guess people are using. I don't know. I've heard like, let me just check. Um, yeah, yeah, I believe this DQ, which you mentioned, is used for monitoring as well.
Yeah,
Correct me
DQ
if I'm
can be
wrong.
absolutely used for monitoring because you build DQ into your pipeline, and it just
Mm-hmm.
reports everything. You can then just export it to Prometheus and show on your
Oh,
dashboards, and it's almost out of the box thing. But
mm-hmm.
it's important to know that DQ is Spark specific. Like if you
Okay,
don't have Spark, you will be most probably uncomfortable with integrating DQ into your pipeline.
I see.
Of
And
course, you can write it in Python, there is PyDQ, it works fine, but still it's, bringing JVM to your ecosystem, both JVM and Python actually, writing some code in Spark. It will be simple, but still you should know something about Spark. You should know what data frame is, what what can it do, and so on.
And so it can expose some metrics and quality report just in real time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh well, I said absolutely, and momentarily I understood that real time for Spark is quite irrelevant, because it's
Yeah.
usually a batch processing tool. It has 3 streamings, but I'm not sure if you can safely use DQ inside your streaming solution. Will it be still streaming, or will it fail? Do they write something on their site? I didn't even try ever,
Oh, yeah.
because for me it was easier to check data with DQ on the start of pipeline and then start streaming it, because at the moment of streaming I always know that the data is decent quality at least.
Yeah, by the way, if you're listening to us and you have something in mind, like some particular tool you're using or something, maybe new library, just write below in the comments and we will take a look at that and discuss maybe in the next podcast.
Who knows?
Yeah. Okay, I see. All right. Gotcha. So, yeah. We discussed like how to measure quality, what kind of sort of like solutions, and at the same time, I know that there is a big problem with the generating actually the data, which is, as we discussed, could be missing, and there are different approaches how you can do that. Of course, you can randomly generate something, but yeah, we obviously it doesn't make sense in a lot of cases if you really care about the data. And there are some other tools exist on the market which could just generate data for you, and yeah, they are quite different, right? So what do you think, by the way, about the data generation? Is it kind of hot topic right now? What do you think, folks?
I'm not sure if it's hot, but I know that this topic is quite old. Like, we need to generate our data in multiple situations. For example, we need to test if our for example, we should generate some test data, and we have only 2 solutions actually. We can write this test data by hands, and we will
Yeah.
never be sure that it is unbiased, that it's complete enough for our test. We can generate that data with some tools like Binerator, link to which you can see in show notes, I hope. And also you can use something like property-based testing, but property-based testing is of course completely unbiased, but it's hard to filter the data you need from property-based testing. Like, it will generate random strings, but random strings are usually a nonsense. You don't need to test any method with random strings. So maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe there are 3 ways, or maybe there are 2, depending on if you think that property-based testing is fine for such for data testing or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good one. But I see there is another problem here. Like if you generating some data just for somehow, I mean, like not using some particular way of generating that one, you could potentially have issues with statistics and with if you care about it. So that's why there are solutions which are synthesizing data on the market, which are obviously kind of trying to solve that problem, I guess, and at the same time they're trying to solve anonymization problem. But this one yeah, is kind of not really obvious from the first sight, I guess.
By the
Yeah.
way, it was always a puzzle for me why anonymization is such a hard problem, because for me it looks like let's just replace any unique set of fields we are interested in with UID, and that's all data is anonymized. Yeah, am I wrong? Where am I wrong?
Yeah,
Yeah, but
it can get quite complex here because you can there's some people who has done like very successful attacks on this kind of data. Like I think the Netflix is one of the most popular ones, right? The Netflix case where they released this big data set where they just added a bit of noise, they removed all the names, and then some people started, I think from the university in Canada somewhere, I'm not sure, they started getting the data from IMDb and linking it to the data that Netflix published, and then they were able to link some people and they were able to know what like famous people had what how many stars they gave to certain movies.
Oh, that's awful. I would
Yeah.
never.
yeah.
I don't want anybody to know how many stars I gave on Netflix. It's like they have only thumbs up and thumbs down. But folks, Equilibrium is my favorite movie of all times.
Yeah, yeah. So here we are, like, yeah, don't has a good point actually here. So if you just
Mhm.
generate or synthesize data with some particular pattern, we can, find the pattern you use, and we can, yeah,
Well,
Yeah,
get
what
an
just
is the
idea
other
link
what
way?
what
back.
real data. Say it
How
again.
else can you do it?
Oh, here we are,
So
Tom.
it's so in these kind of traditional techniques that like the one you're thinking, just get rid of IDs, or there's some ways of like called K anonymity that it's just you bin some information, you add noise, all these techniques that you get one sample and you modify it. Those work, but the problem is that you can end up going back to that sample. And in Synthesize, what we do is the core technology is a model, a machine learning model that learns the statistical information in the data and is able then to generate new data. That the thing is that this new data is very similar to the original data, but it's not actually the original data. So
Yeah, but
if
I'm sorry.
you generated a rating in Netflix, then maybe some person will be generated that has similar thoughts as you, but it won't be you exactly.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Mhm.
I can understand this, but what about anonymization? Because you just said that you can't just replace one data with another and hope that nobody will link
Mhm.
this, replace data to actual one. How do you do it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, the problem is that you have to decide a threshold where like you have to lose more information in order for the attacker to get less information, right? So at some point you're just going to lose all the information that you need for the purpose of the data. And that's why usual anonymization techniques, although sometimes they work, in many situations they just fail, and it's even difficult to understand why. So that can be a big problem.
So how do you understand which data you should hide?
That's the problem. It's very difficult to understand. That's why traditional techniques are not that useful anymore.
Do I understand correctly that you at Synthesized know how to solve this task?
But that's the thing. At Synthesized, we take a different approach. Instead of
Oh, so
masking the
you are
data,
not anonymizing data. You are
exactly.
generating data. Yeah. Okay. Got
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
I,
Exactly.
I I just thought for a minute that you have some unique anonymization solution which is not actually replaced based. Like maybe with help of AI, you can find all the fields which should be hidden. I don't know how. I'm not an actual data scientist. I'm not a data scientist at all. I'm former data engineer, and that's all. Kind of
Yeah.
stupid
Yeah,
engineering guy.
in general, it looks like we can solve the task as well. Like you can have a big set of like fields which people don't like to expose, usually like
Mhm.
names, phone numbers, credit card numbers, whatever they are, and you can just train the model like to check the columns, like how they called in the different databases. Usually, developers, they call all the stuff like how you call it in real life, so it's quite easy to get
But then some smartass will start, joining data from IMDb and from Netflix, and will unveil you.
That's true. That's another point.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so there are some specific solutions which allow you generate or synthesize data, and we actually haven't covered them all. Yeah, for sure. There is a data generator by DetProf or Binitrator, as you mentioned, or some Tonic AI.
It's
guess
Binurator, Steve. It's not Binitrator. It's Binurator.
sorry, I'm misspelling. All right. So different solutions. But at the same time, we kind of can generate data, but how we can make sure that, you probably remember we at the beginning we talked a bit more about how to ensure we generate data that cover all possible scenarios in our app. And here we are, how we can do that in real world. We probably, first thing could come up in my mind that, okay, you can have some requirements which define all the behaviors, and you can think about all the possible scenarios for that, and you can generate data for all the possible scenarios. But in reality, you know how it looks like, right? So you don't have requirements. So
Oh, how is it possible? I can't work without requirements.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So here we come with some query analysis, like SQL query analysis, which are running by your app, right? So, and I thought maybe it's not that popular technique right now to analyze the query to assure that you got enough data. But anyway, there are some solutions on the market already. I don't know. What do you think? Ton, I know that for some clients, we used approach to analyze the queries. How did you come up to this solution? Why did you start doing that? Because I'm pretty sure they haven't asked you to do that, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting because the SQL is the first interface between the data and the user. So you have some data and then you apply a query and then you get some other data. And that transformation is what some clients, like the second set of data is what the clients sometimes they want to test. And yeah, in this case that you mentioned, Seba, what we did is we have a query analyzer that it will check the query and it will check all the patterns and all the segments in the data by analyzing the query structure. And from there, we can understand what segments are missing, where segments are not missing. And then we can even have a metric of data coverage, which is a really interesting thing and very difficult to get, and a percentage of data coverage. So how many of these segments are covered by the data, which was really interesting and very powerful. And then based on the segments that are not covered by the current data, we can then generate more data for those situations and for these segments. And that's really, that's quite fascinating.
So do I understand correctly that you have something like definition of equivalence class inside your software, and you build all possible equivalence classes for each query, and then you build data for these equivalence classes?
Yeah, so we extract all this information from the query, and then we get data, we generate data for every segment of the query. Yeah.
Do I understand correctly that there is combinatorial explosion because more where clauses you have, more data you should generate, quadratically for each for each clause?
I'm not sure. I'm understanding the question.
For example, I have simple SQL query with where x less than 1, and then actually I should generate only data where there is like 1 and 0 and 2,
Yeah.
and that's all.
Mhm.
If I have another thing, x less than 1 and y bigger than 1 again, then I should generate nine rows of data to check
Mhm.
this query. For third clause, I will have to generate 27 rows, and in in real world queries, it may be much
Mhm.
more complex.
Yeah, yeah, I agree that especially when you get into the continuous data world, the amount of data that you can generate it's just infinite. So you cannot expect to generate all exactly every single data point. So you have to binarize the space into different areas and just generate as many. Like there are some clients, for example, that wanted just one single data point per segment, and that was good enough for them. And but depending on how many, you can generate more or less. But yeah, I agree that it explodes. Yeah,
Yeah,
the amount of data needed. There's also something very interesting, that is that you don't need one data point per rule. You can, if you do it smart enough, you can generate one data point that covers multiple rules at the same time. So that can reduce complexity and amount of data quite a bit also.
yeah. So, so did I understand correctly that you don't have these explosions inside your solution, and you will
No,
easily
it's,
generate?
yeah, no, the user can configure how many samples he needs for each segment, and then it will limit the amount of samples by that parameter so that it doesn't explode.
That's very
Oh.
interesting. I wanted to share how do you do it, but it looks like we almost have no time.
Yeah, we're
Mhm.
kind of reaching the limit right now, and I'm really excited that we spent 1 hour talking about really cool stuff. And yeah, maybe we can sum up our discussion, and in the description we will share more different tools we actually discovered, and we'll share some topics which you can read afterwards. But maybe we can, folks, have a bit of summary what we discussed today and reviewed.
Mhm.
Who wanna do that?
Let me summarize. Let me summarize.
Okay.
So we discussed what data quality is, and we understood that there are 6 scales of data quality, but they not all are at the same time applicable or mandatory for data to be of high quality. Also, we discussed the tools for data generation and the questions of data anonymization and why it's hard to implement the correct data anonymizations. Also, we have acknowledged that there is a way to anonymize that data, but by really generating data which looks like source data. And also, we discussed that there is a possibility to generate data by analyzing SQL queries, and folks from Synthesized can do it.
Yeah, yeah. And actually,
I
yeah,
think
I
that's
think there
pretty
are
much
some
all.
other solutions which can, analyze the queries. Like I will share a bit of them in the description. But yeah, we probably next time we can take a look at those and dive deeper into the query analysis, or like I don't know what will make sense, what would make sense to you folks. But yeah,
Absolutely,
um,
but I've just
Mhm.
shared the interesting project I found like several days ago. It's called
cool,
SQL Glot, and it's an awesome node dependency SQL parser for Python, and it's really
nice.
impressive actually.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great, great. Ton, what
Nice.
are your thoughts? Like, uh, yeah, I think Pasha has a great summary.
Yeah, it was a great summary. I couldn't have done it better. I think it was really nice. And yeah, it's been a really interesting discussion here, and a lot of thoughts and interesting ideas. So yeah, happy to jump in a new one very soon.
Yeah. All
Thank
right,
you very
let's
much, and
organize
it
a new
was
one.
exciting.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Pasha, and thank you everyone who was watching us. And see you around. Bye-bye.
subscribe. Bye bye.
Thank you.